could taste the salt water in my mouth, and I could feel this tightening in my chest with this last bit of air, and I could feel the tears in my eyes welling. But these tears were not going to roll down my cheeks because I was underwater. I was drowning. In the summer of 2012, at a sandy reef break called the Marine Room in La Jolla, a rogue set separated me and my 8.6 longboard, a pink longboard. And as I watched this board tumble chaotically further and further away from me, my fear increased. And it doubled, and this fear wasn't fear of dying. It was fear of embarrassment. You see, my husband, a former professional surfer, was an eye shot of this chaotic mess. I was kook of the day, okay? This gigantic board, it's pink, it's got monster fins, it's heading towards other people, and there's my husband, okay? I'm kook of the day. And as I sat there, marinating in my own ego, a series of set waves came up behind me. And these are very powerful waves. And they took me to the bottom of the ocean floor over and over again. A gallon of water weighs 8 pounds. And a wave 6 foot or greater is hundreds of pounds. So it was like a washing machine had been dropped on top of me. And then I was thrown inside that washing machine and then put on spin cycle. And let me tell you, I was clean, okay? There were parts of me that I didn't even know I had that were now clean. Surfing and business have a lot of parallels. I can't control the waves. I can't control the timing of the waves. But I can learn to surf. Winston Churchill said that fear is a reaction, but that courage is a choice. And I choose courage in my leadership. Leadership my way is courage, looking at surfing parallels, and my quiver of peas. Perfection. Perfection is not my friend. I choose progress. That day out there in the Marine Room, I was obsessing about not having perfection. And it was the wrong place for my mind to be. I needed quick recovery. I almost died because of it. And that quick recovery has happened for me many times in business. You know, I was just doing a live broadcast interview not so long ago. I stated the wrong information. Actually, it was really bad information. And I didn't fall to the floor. I didn't panic. Tears weren't welling in my eyes. I didn't say I was sorry. I simply course corrected. Quick recovery. It's not going to be perfect, but I tell you what, it was progress, and progress for my business. Passion. The definition of passion is an emotional response not connected to reason. In business, we kind of need reason, right? We need logic. When I was learning how to surf, I was very passionate about the culture. I just thought it was the neatest thing ever. But it did not teach me to surf. What taught me to surf was understanding the physics. I have to paddle as hard as I can to catch a wave. And my goal is to reach the same speed as the oncoming wave behind me. And when I do that, my board is lifted up. I'm now under the power of the ocean, not my own power, but the ocean's power, and I feel that. And I pop up, and the gravity of me on this board actually pushes down and creates acceleration, and then I'm in the liquid playground, okay? So that's how surfing works. It's the physics. It's not the passion. And in passion in business is technology, the technology I've worked on, where I stayed up so many late nights, sacrificing time with my family, trying to launch technology. And the same with startups. fat stacks of cash dropped on some of these startups. But it wasn't passion that sustained me. It was the physics, it was the logic. That technology was going to transform our lives. Those startups were solving a marketplace problem, a real problem. The investors in those startups were going to get their return on investment. The who for the why for the what. And any time that I've led and held on to passion as my rudder, I was left cold, wet, and tired. Preparation. Preparation is having the right gear and having the right equipment. When I was learning to surf, I didn't have the right equipment. It took me a long time to figure out that I needed a certain type of board with certain thickness of rails to hold my weight. And when I figured that out, it was great. The same with my board of directors. I need leaders that are visionary, that can hold the weight of the organization, that can get us into places that I simply cannot get into myself, right? So it's the equipment. When you see a surfer riding, 5% of what you see is them catching that wave, and it's amazing, or them picking up that trophy after the competition. And in business, when you see your colleague who's picking up all the press and launching the technology and being very profitable, that's 5% of the effort, right? So that 5% is very much about that preparation. And the preparation, I think, is very important to how we lead. But I also want to talk about the hard work. We've all had hard work experiences where that hard work has us, where we have to move forward. And I want to tell you a story about when I was pregnant. It was my second son, and when I was in the delivery room, I had actually received a call from my boss. Now, for context, my boss was a serial entrepreneur, very well-known individual. I was the third employee of the startup. Forbes actually had quoted about my boss, he had the ability to see around corners in terms of technology. And so he calls me up and he says, hey, Cheryl, we need to work on XYZ. And I'm like, I'm in labor. And his response is, yeah, I know that you're in labor, but you know what? This is gonna help your pain. Let me get this straight. Hey, as soon as I'm done popping out this human, then I'm gonna get to work on that. Oh, and by the way, doctors, nurses, drop the epidural. He has figured out how to solve labor pains. Later on that night, I gave birth to a beautiful 8-pound baby boy and an exclusive agreement coupled with a press announcement. Now, they weren't exactly twins, but they're both hard work. Other hard times that I had had in the world of work was leading technology delegations, as I often did, in different countries, and mostly in Asia. And without fail, I was always assumed to be an accessory to the environment. I was either the support staff. I would be asked when Mr. Goodman would show up, and I would say, well, I am Mr. Goodman. And it was always sadness and shock for these poor businessmen. They were saddened and in shock because they were wrong. They didn't do their homework. But they were really disappointed because the evening activities that I had planned that included pole dancers and massages simply wasn't going to work out. But the 500-pound rogue wave, the 500-pound wave, that real hard work was that boss, that egocentric, over-entitled, alcoholic, grabby, handsy boss, okay? And he was a leader turned predator. And this was very hard for me And I tried to navigate around this for quite a long time. And there were a lot of cuts and scrapes in this. But you know what? At the end of the day, is I would never let some poser try and hang 11 on my career. Think about hang 11. Because the reality is that this is my right, okay? And the waves simply will not stop. As I get into my final P's, the preparation in the gear, in the utility, I talked about the board, I talked about my board, and I'm going to now tell you about all of the other things that I believe are important for women in the world of work. And that is hair and makeup and shoes. And they're important. Look at the right crowd here. Shaka sisters. But I will tell you about the time that I was on a tech tour in San Francisco, and I had on these gorgeous shoes. Man, were they painful. Come 2 o'clock, I was ready to throw them out the window. And my colleagues had to go ahead of me, and it was super embarrassing. I was leading this meeting, and I was late. And I really thought deeply about my choice. I chose my appearance over the contribution for my team. And that really bummed me out. And then I started to think about, as a young executive, how much time I would spend in the mirror every morning, 45 minutes easy, on makeup and hair. And sometimes I would show up and I wasn't fully prepared for the meeting, and I thought, gosh, how can you live with yourself, that what are my values here? The value is I need to show up prepared and less worried about my appearance, because I want to focus on impact. I want to focus on intention. We don't have to have perfect hair. I mean, Einstein never brushed his hair, right? And look at his impact. And I am certainly not suggesting that we put away what makes us feminine, because I like makeup and I like shoes, and we all, men included, we all like to look good, right? Hell yeah. So I know we want to look good, but we also want to think about that investment of time and our impact, and to never erode that potential impact that we can have in our career and in this world if we focus on our own true impact. And I think that's very, very important. It's not my perfectly lined lips. It's not my perfectly sculpted hair. It is my intent, and it is my impact. And it's not attention, it's intention. And when I want to succeed in business and I want to win, that means I want to focus on hitting the lip, shredding the gnar, riding the wave, closing the deal, paddling back out, and winning again. That's what I want. So where does that leave me today? I founded a business 4 years ago. It's a successful, profitable venture. I am so fortunate to lead an organization where we work with professional women in life science and technology, negotiation, and many other important things. But I wasn't always there. For many years, I worked at a major corporation with phenomenal technology, a global leader, hands down. But I really miss the world of startup. The sharky, cold, rocky waters of startup, I should say, but I missed it. And I remember the day that I wanted to resign, and I ultimately resolved that I was going to resign. And I got in the elevator, and I went to the 10th floor, and I'm walking down the hall to my boss's office, and I sit down. I'm just about ready to say, I quit. And before I could mouth the words, I had this vision of all of the broken businesses and broken startups. 9 out of 10 will fail, especially women who lead startups. They don't get the funding they need. A very small percentage of VC capital goes to women. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm really going into these sharky waters. But I was in the chair. What was I going to do? So I said, I quit. And he looked at me like I was the biggest kook. Like I had just let go of my board, and then I was sitting in the impact zone. But you know what? No matter how big that wave seemed to him, no matter how big my wave, the wave I was going to catch, seemed to him, we have to choose courage if we're going to ride the wave of our life.